Portugal, a country on the western edge of Europe that is now known as a Catholic country with a history of world-class seafaring. However, not many people know that behind its old churches and historic cities, there are long traces of Islamic civilization. Yes, Islam once lived, flourished, and even triumphed in the land of Portugal. And now, after centuries of being wiped out, Islam has returned. Not with the sword, but with the light of knowledge, peace, and the search for meaning. The history of Islam in the Iberian Peninsula began in 711 AD, when Muslim troops from North Africa, led by Tariq bin Ziyad, crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and entered the region of Hispania, now known as Spain and Portugal. The region now known as Portugal, especially in the south, such as the Algarve, became part of Islamic rule for more than 500 years. Cities such as Silves, Faro, and Mértola became centers of trade, science, and culture. Architecture, irrigation systems, mathematics and astronomy, and interfaith tolerance all flourished under Islamic rule. But things began to change as the Reconquista, a Christian reconquest movement, slowly eroded Muslim territory. In 1249, the last city in southern Portugal fell to King Afonso III. From then on, traces of Islam were slowly erased from official historical records. After the fall of the Islamic Empire, the Muslim community in Portugal was under great pressure. They were forced to convert, flee, or live in the shadows. Arabic names were changed, mosques were converted into churches, and Muslim cultural heritage was buried in silence. But the traces never really disappeared. In the Portuguese language, in the food, in the agricultural system, and even in the architecture, the influence of Islam lives on in silence. Entering the 20th and 21st centuries, waves of migration from Muslim countries such as Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, Morocco, and Pakistan began to bring the Muslim community back to Portugal. From being a working community, Muslims in Portugal began to build a new identity: active, educated, and contributing citizens. Today, it is estimated that there are more than 50,000 Muslims in Portugal. The Lisbon Mosque, one of the largest mosques in Western Europe, stands majestically as a symbol of the peaceful and modern existence of Islam. Despite the acceptance of Islam, the Muslim community in Portugal still faces challenges: prejudice, discrimination, and limited religious facilities. However, the younger generation of Muslims in Portugal continues to move through education, interfaith dialogue, and social activities. Islam returning to Portugal today is not a conquest, but a healing of history. Not an ambition for power, but a search for the meaning of a peaceful life in a pluralistic society. Portugal today is a secular country that values religious freedom. Interfaith dialogue is growing. Churches and mosques can coexist. And Islam, after centuries of marginalization, is finding its place again, not as a ruler, but as part of a diverse and modern society. Islam is returning to Portugal with a new face, a new spirit, and a new hope. The traces that were once left on Iberian soil are now growing again as trees of peace. Because history is not just the past. It is a mirror, a warning, and a hope. Behind the statistics and the long history, there are faces that bring hope. Like Ahmed, a young imam in Lisbon who was born to immigrants from Guinea-Bissau and now leads a Quran interpretation class for teenagers. Or Layla, a law student of Pakistani descent who is a spokesperson for the Muslim community in interfaith dialogue. Interview Layla, Muslim activist. Nyameno, we are the new generation. We wear the hijab and speak Portuguese. We fast during Ramadan and participate in democracy. Our identity is not a burden, but a blessing. Portugal is known as one of the most peaceful and tolerant countries in Europe. Surveys show that Portuguese society has a high level of acceptance of other religions, including Muslims. In many cities, churches and mosques exchange visits, discuss shared values, and organize joint social actions, from food drives to aid for refugees. We see Islam not as a threat, but as part of spiritual diversity. We share many values: compassion, justice, and kindness to others. The return of Islam to Portugal is not a revival of the Andalusian Empire, but rather the arrival of a new light, a calm, wise, and constructive light. This returning Islam does not reject history, but acknowledges and embraces it. It does not respond to past wounds with anger, but offers healing through love, knowledge, and dialogue. And from there, hope was born, that the future can be built together by anyone, without erasing the identities of others. In a country that once forgot Islam, the voices of takbir and salam are heard again, no longer as echoes of war, but as whispers of peace. Portugal has changed. Islam has grown. Now the two meet again, in friendship, in humanity, in light. Being a Muslim in a minority country is not an obstacle. In fact, for many Muslim families in Portugal, it is an opportunity to educate their children to be strong, open, and pious individuals, even in a secular environment. Small madrasas have sprung up behind mosques, teaching the Quran, Arabic, and morals to a new generation. Many public schools also accept optional religious classes for Muslim students, a form of tolerance that is starting to grow. We don't just teach memorization, we teach meaning, wisdom, and how to be a good Muslim in society. We teach that Islam is a blessing, not a barrier. In universities, Muslim students are starting to actively discuss Islam in public forums. Books on Andalusian history, Islamic philosophy, and the contributions of Muslim civilization are now back on library shelves. Islam today does not claim a crown, does not seek a throne. Islam in Portugal is present as a witness, as part of a living community, contributing and giving color to society. The future of Islam in Portugal is not about domination, but collaboration, not changing the face of the country, but bringing to life universal values, justice, compassion, trustworthiness, and honesty. Muslim children growing up in Portugal today not only learn Arabic, but also speak fluently the language of love, work ethic, and social intelligence. They are a bridge, not a fortress, between East and West, between faith and knowledge, between history and hope. O Allah, as you once illuminated this land with knowledge and justice, illuminate the hearts of the new generation with the light of faith and morals. Make them bearers of peace, not division. Make them role models, not burdens. And make us all, whatever our beliefs, a human family that respects each other, protects each other, and loves each other for your sake. They grow up with a harmonious dual identity, as Portuguese citizens who are proud of their country, and as Muslims who are steadfast in the principles of goodness. They refuse to be pigeonholed into East or West, between tradition or modernity. For them, being Muslim in Portugal is not alienation, but the courage to be a bridge of noble values amidst plurality. On the streets of cities like Lisbon and Porto, there is an open dialogue between mosque imams and church pastors. They sit together, talk about social issues, build humanitarian programs, and affirm that faith is not a reason to hate, but a force for understanding. Interfaith festivals are emerging, bringing together Sufi music with Portuguese Fado, the poetry of Jalaluddin Rumi with the philosophy of Fernando Pessoa. Symbols that were once separate are now in dialogue in a heartfelt harmony. Behind all this, there is a new awareness that Islam is not a guest in Portugal, but part of the heritage and future of this nation. Not a threat, but an opportunity to enrich the spirit of living together. We did not come to dominate, but to give. We do not want to erase, but to add meaning. In a land that was once the lamp of civilization, we come with a small lamp, hopefully enough to light the way home for humanity. And perhaps in the future, when children from different backgrounds sit together in the same classroom, reading the history of Al-Andalus and the Portuguese Revolution in one breath, they will know that differences are not wounds to be avoided, but mosaics to be celebrated. From classrooms to markets, from city parks to national television screens, the face of Islam appears not as a shadow of the past, but as a partner of the future. Interfaith dialogue is no longer a ceremonial event, but a practical necessity in an increasingly interconnected world. A new generation of Portuguese Muslim activists, journalists, lecturers, doctors, artists, is emerging who speak the truth without clashing identities. They are not present with loud voices, but with examples that quietly change views. They know that the best way to preach is not with long speeches, but by being good neighbors, honest colleagues, loyal friends. We want Islam to be known not from fear, but from goodness, not from stereotypes, but from deeds. If we can be a mirror, then let what is seen be the face of His love. In the midst of the current of globalization and the challenges of digital culture, the Islamic values taught since childhood become an anchor. Muslim teenagers born in Porto or Coimbra grow up with two worlds, Europe and Islam, which no longer eliminate each other, but complement each other. The government has also begun to involve the Muslim community in designing inclusive policies. Mosques are not only places of worship, but also centers of culture and education. Islamic holidays are starting to be widely known, not only by the Muslim community, but by all levels of society.